big title people saying they're financial experts, proving they know very little about finance. So we're just going to dive in real quick. Dave Ramsey. And this one, what is this called? Oh, Dave Ramsey, the real reason the Fed keeps raising interest rates. So the Federal Reserve has been raising interest rates. Dave is going to explain to you why. And I'm sure Dave has
doesn't the Fed usually tell us why?
Yes, the Fed has told us why.
I feel like they tell us why. I feel like we don't have to do a lot of work to figure out why, because they usually say that.
Well, the Fed is saying they're trying to squeeze the job market so they can lower inflation. That's what their goal is. Now, I don't agree with it. A lot of finance people don't agree with it, but Dave's going to tell you why. We're just going to have to settle through it. All right, just take a Xanax and just get ready.
All right, I'm getting comfortable for this one. Here we go. All right.
I feel like we need to smoke some weed or something before we get into this.
Massage therapist that just sits here behind me and massages my shoulders while I enjoy this. Okay.
Yes, thank you, Aguardio. All right, here we go.
If you continue raising interest rates as you plan, unemployment will be 4.6% by the end of the year, and that would be about 2 million people. If you could speak directly to the 2 million who you're planning to get fired over the next year, what would you say to them?
Inflation is extremely high, and it's hurting the working people of this country badly, all of them, not just 2 million of them. And we are taking the only measures we have to bring inflation down.
And putting 2 million people out of work is just part of the cost, and they just have to bear it?
Well, will working people be better off if we just walk away from our jobs and inflation remains 5-6%?
There have been 12 times that we've seen a 1-point increase in the unemployment rate in a year. How many times did the economy fail to fall into a recession after doing that? Out of 12 times.
I think the number is 0.
I think the number is 0. That's exactly right.
Ouch, Elizabeth Warren bringing the heat, and this is where I'm shocked, but I actually agree with her. This is a situation where Jerome Powell, folks, has gone off.
So this is Ken.
Rachel Cruze has no idea how she's supposed to react right now, because we know that she's my favorite, right?
Right. So she didn't even understand any of that.
She didn't understand what was going on. She had no idea what was going on at all. But everything Elizabeth Warren said sounded really reasonable to her, and you could tell she was searching in her brain for how to hate that.
Right. She's trying to figure it out.
That was wrong, but she couldn't come up with anything.
Right.
Because she barely understands it, and it all sounded kind of reasonable.
Right. Well, there's two arguments going on there, right? It's really simple. Jerome Powell saying, look, it's 5, 6, 7% inflation is really bad. Warren's saying, yeah, but what you're talking about doing is squeezing the job market and potentially putting 2 million people out of work. And you don't think that's going to cause a bigger problem? Right?
I mean, that's a very reasonable, counter argument to what his initial claim is.
Right.
You know, how is that not going to turn out really bad for us?
Right. So she's saying, I mean, how many times has that been an issue where it didn't fall into a recession? Oh, fucking every time? So what are you talking about? 100%
of the time it's been a problem.
Yeah. Well, it has. I mean, it hasn't been as big of a problem as he's making it. Right. So that's just her point. But the point is there's going to be a lot of pain to a lot of, especially lower income people and middle class people, that doesn't need to happen. Right. And this is before they raised rates, but this is, they're going with that anyway. But let's see.
Wait a minute. So when he puts the squeeze on the job market, you mean rich people aren't the ones that lose their jobs?
No, rich people are always okay. Yeah.
Hold on. So you mean it's the people who are already poor or the middle class that's always getting screwed that get screwed again?
Yes. Yeah.
Never thought of that.
I know.
Thanks.
So anyway, let's see. Ken and Rachel, let's see if they can figure it out, because the real answer to this question is, and what Warren's arguing for is, well, what we need to do is not do that and encourage more wage growth.
Okay, here's my real question. Does Rachel ever figure out what they're talking about?
I don't know. We'll find out.
Do you want to make a friendly bet? Or you've seen this whole thing. Have you seen this whole thing?
No, I just watched the beginning of it.
Okay, so you haven't seen the whole thing.
No.
See, we're being honest here. Don't you love that? So, a friendly bet. Do you think Rachel ever figures it out? We can agree or disagree.
I think she probably just agrees with everything Ken says. Ken Coleman is the other guy, and Ken's not going to understand it. So I don't think Ken is going to understand it, but we'll see.
I don't think Rachel will ever figure it out, but I think she'll try to use as many words as she can.
Yeah, I think she'll try. So let's see if Ken can figure it out.
On record, many times you can get on the Google if you think I'm making this up, and he has said it is an unfortunate.
What was that?
The Google.
Get on the Google. If you don't believe Ken, get on the Google.
Google.
It'll prove what he's saying. Let's see what he's saying. I got to hear him.
Pain point that we're going to have to get to see unemployment go up. And his idea is if unemployment goes up because we are raising the cost of borrowing, raising the cost of doing business, that companies will lay people off. Now, we've seen big tech do that, and he's flirting with a recession because he's hoping that companies will lay people off. What happens then is the job demand goes down in his mind, and so now people aren't having to pay as much because he knows that wage pressures, Rachel, are causing inflation to be.
And that's not true. And we've covered that before. So wage pressure, we discussed this before. It was the San Francisco Federal Reserve did their study on it, and they figured, okay, wage growth, because wage growth, there was a professor from Wharton that we watched too. And he did that whole thing about, well, the problem is you can't say it's wage growth that's causing this because wage growth hasn't kept up with inflation. It's below inflation. And in an ideal economy, wage growth should be at least 1% to 2% higher than inflation. That would be a normal sort of situation. But wage growth, even though it's been better, it's still less than inflation. So you can't say that wage growth is causing 6 or 7% inflation when wage growth is 3%. Right? Because the way that works is this: is Lacey now makes $3. Let's say that Lacey makes another $1 an hour at her job, right? So the theory is Lacey's going to go out and spend more money because she has more money, right? And that's going to drive up demand. You know, one person not so much, but if everybody was making more, that'll drive up demand because now they have more money to spend, and that's going to drive up price. Cost on things because demand is up, so you can ask more for it. Well, if what you're saying is, well, yeah, but everything went up $1.50, right? You know, the total spending went up $1.50 an hour worth. Well, that extra $1 an hour isn't what's causing that $1.50 because Lacey can't spend $1.50 she doesn't have. You see my point? So that's what that argument was. The other argument is when they did the actual study, like 20% of it they thought was maybe caused by wage growth. Another 30% was caused by maybe some of this stuff coming out of the pandemic where people had extra money saved. But most of it was caused by companies artificially raising prices. Those were the biggest culprits. Supply chain problems and companies raising prices. Not that people have extra money. So he just lied when he said, no, the problem is wages are causing it. So he just disagreed with Elizabeth Warren after he agreed with her. Because it doesn't fit his narrative. So he can't agree with her. Right? Yeah.
Meanwhile, Jill has no idea what's going on.
No. So this whole thing is really dumb right from the get-go.
He's stubborn. But here's the challenge with what he said. It's not the only tool he has. The Fed screwed this up. The Fed flushed too much money into the economy and got us to this point because they were worried about the pandemic. This is what happens when...
That is not what happened. God. So, The Fed did not flush money into the economy. Okay, the Fed can do monetary policy and release, like QE. I don't know if you guys remember that from 2008, where they release more bonds, but that affects businesses being able to borrow at cheaper prices. And what that does is that allows them to hire more people. But that didn't drive up wage growth.
I mean, the thing is that he's just going back to this like old Ramsey narrative they've had since the beginning of the pandemic, and
At the beginning of
their
time.
whole thing is that we don't give a shit if all these people die. We got to make sure they come into the workplace, and our employees all want to come into our workplace, and they've got this insane narrative surrounding the whole thing. That they just like have to go back and support because they don't have anything else.
Well, right. There's no systemic issue. There's no bigger issue or problem or financial analysis. It's just that people are bad with money. And so if you don't have money, it's your own fault. And therefore we don't have to fucking care. That's it. That's their whole philosophy. It's it must be your fault. So I don't have to give a shit. Right. That's the whole thing. But he can't get there, so he's got to go, well, no, the problem is his wage growth. And now he's made a really stupid mistake by saying, well, the Fed flushed all this money in during the pandemic. No, the money that was flushed in during the pandemic, right, was not done by the Fed. The Fed can't flush money in like that to people to jack up wage growth. It can't do that. You can give people things like, COVID checks. But where did those come from? Congress and the Treasury. So he doesn't even understand the difference between monetary and fiscal policy. Because he thinks the Fed gave you your COVID check from that statement. So he's either incredibly mistaken or he's just an idiot. Because he doesn't understand that. And he still has to blame wages for everything when that's not the issue. And we've determined that.
The federal government and the federal bank gets involved in the economy. He then says, ironically, what would you have us do, Senator Warren? Walk away from our jobs? Yes, actually. I would like you, feckless Fed chair pal, to walk away and just let the economy figure it out.
Do its thing, yeah.
Here's why. Yes, inflation has made the household budget much higher. However,
Yes, no,
No. The argument was don't raise the rates right now, right? That was the argument Warren was making. Because inflation has actually been going down pretty steadily. Not great, but it's going down. So it might be that you raise the rates and you push this situation and, oh my God, all of a sudden now we have 2 million people unemployed and inflation would have gone down on its own anyway. So it didn't do anything but just destroy 2 million lives. Or plus another, whatever, 10 or 20 million middle class people are going to have to live on less, right? Or get hours cut or whatever. So it's basically you're over treating the problem, right? You're using a pair of, you're using like a I don't know what you're using like a dump truck to pull out a splinter. Essentially, is what she's saying. When you could just use a pair of tweezers. Right, but he doesn't understand any of that shit. So let's see. We'll give him another minute here.
And she's trying to glom onto anything he says.
Yeah, she didn't have shit. You called that. She doesn't know.
First 2 million people, or maybe more, because here's the deal. These are projections. We're at 3.4% unemployment right now. Historic lows. If it gets pushed, and there are quotes where he said, Rachel, it may get to 6% unemployment, and that may be what it takes. So you're going to drive millions of people to unemployment, and you think that's going to fix it. But here's the issue. We've got 5 to 6 million jobs available right now. That was my question. I know, I'm paying it off. We've got 5 to 6 million jobs available right now in this economy, so if you drive to unemployment, they're going to go get another job, and we're not going to fix it. And oh, by the way, let's step back, Rachel. Has the interest rate increase done anything to unemployment so far? No, it has not.
No, because you're also in a different situation. Because you're coming out of a pandemic. you had the Great Resignation, where all these people quit their jobs, right? And you have a lot of people demanding more wage. And so why do you have these 5 million something jobs? Well, these 5 million something jobs are all suck jobs nobody wants, right? So that doesn't solve the problem. You expect that what, these people are just going to go take these 2 or 3 of these shit jobs? They don't want to work anyway. So he doesn't have a solution here. What it is once again, we're blaming the workers. Is what they always do. Got to blame the workers. See, there are jobs, you just got to go take them. Yeah, the wages suck. There's no benefits. They don't really cover your bills. But it's your fault. You need to just go work. Even if it's to your own detriment and it hurts you.
Or a pandemic literally kills you. It's all fine.
That's what's so funny about this. He is agreeing with Jerome Powell. But at the same time going, yeah, but it's so terrible what'll happen to these people. But you know what? There's all these jobs they could just go take. So there really isn't a problem. Unemployment won't go down. Unemployment will stay where it is because these people can go take these 5.6 million jobs that nobody's taking anyway.
This just keeps getting stupider and stupider.
Yep. Well, we're going to finish with that.